Peace, peace, peace. What's good, family? This is your boy Solomon. I am live here with Orthodox Moor, aka the Moorish assassin. And we got Outside the Cube in the building, family. So when you come in, hit the like button, hit the like button. When you come in the building, family, this is the Solar Vision Debate League. I done set up a whole litany of debates. And it's not in order. So I gotta be looking you know, when you have it in order, because I got this little poster board that I put the scheduled debates on. But it's not in order because everybody had to choose a date, you know, to send around the work schedule, etc. And everybody coming at a different time. But we got a good about 15 debates lined up for the family. So we're going to be very busy in the next couple of weeks. Sister Divine just contacted me. She wants to do a presentation. And we set that up for, I believe, on this Sunday, on this Sunday the 5th. She's going to be doing a presentation entitled Elyon is Yah. Elyon is Yah. So she's going to be breaking that down. And earlier that day, later on that day, we're going to have Asar M. Kai going against Brother Critic. And they're going to be talking about the biblical exodus. Biblical exodus, fact or fiction. They'll be getting it in, family. So make sure you be in the building for that. Nyame is going on against Yahaira ben Nazareth. We got the Aryan invasion, 1500 to 2000 BCE. It's the beginning of white supremacy. So that's that's that Yahweh war machine versus the Rock Nation type of thing. Because Nyame is part of the Rock Nation and Brother Yahaira is part of the Yahweh war machine. So yeah, that's going to be a good debate right there. So that'll be we gotta reschedule that because they were supposed to do it Friday, but I think Nyame had to reschedule because he was looking at the Avengers movie. Yeah, so we got Uncle Cat this Wednesday. Uncle Cat from the Amira Squad is going up against Yahaira ben Nazareth, and the topic of that debate is: did the Bible talk about the whole of mankind? What's the Bible talking about the whole of mankind? Uncle Cat from the Amira Squad going up against Yahaira ben Nazareth. Make sure you be in the building for that, family. Tuesday, we're going to try to have an interview with a new member of the debate league. He just had to get back in contact with me. And later on that day, we're going to have King Christian going up against Brother Domo. Should we base our concepts of good and evil from the scriptures? That'll be Tuesday, family, tomorrow. So make sure you be in the building 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because we will be getting it in. Solving the Race Problem will be in the building as well. Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, Solving the Race Problem will be going up against Domo and they will be talking about reparations. Will reparations be good or bad for black people? Solving the Race Problem will also be debating King Christian. Is the Israelite doctrine beneficial for black people? He's definitely trying to solve the race problem. We got we're going to try to have that interview with Brother Madden tomorrow. He sent me an email. Got to get in contact with him. We were supposed to have it today, but we just rescheduled. So Real is going to be going up against Gideon. That'll be on the 18th. That'll be in a couple of weeks. So Real and Gideon. Is non-Torah Christians polytheistic or monotheistic? Is non-Torah Christians polytheistic or monotheistic? So we got that amongst did I read everything again? We got a couple other more debates up there. I will be debating Vance, Brother Vance, on autism and vaccinations. So Make sure you be in the building for that as well. So as what I told you guys, we got a whole litany of debates lined up for the family, and so you definitely be tuned into Solar Vision Debate League. But tonight, family, we got solving the race problem. I mean, outside the cube. We got outside the cube and Orthodox Moor in the building. So we're going to be getting it in tonight. And the topic for tonight's debate is macroevolution a fact? Is macroevolution a fact? So let's introduce tonight's debaters. What's going on outside the cube? Peace to you, family. What's good?
Hey, peace. Yeah, glad to be here again in the Solar Vision Debate League for all-season debate. So, yeah, I'm ready. Let's get it. I'm not feeling 100%, but I still put my boots on and go to work tonight.
All right, no doubt, family. Orthodox Moor, Moorish assassin. What's good with you, family?
Peace, family. Big up to the panel. Big up to Solomon. Big up to the people in the chat, viewing and listening in. How y'all living? We about to get it in. Even though it's the off season, we stay ready, so we ain't gotta get ready, family.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Orthodox Moor, outside the cube. Now we got a customized format tonight. We're gonna go with a 7-minute opening, 10-minute premise, 10-minute rebuttal, 15-minute rapid fire, and a 7-minute closing. We're going to get right into this thing. Outside the Cube is set to go first, family. So we're going to go ahead and set this timer for 7 minutes. And then allow my brother to go. Hold on 1 second while I set this timer. And whenever you're ready, brother, you could begin your opening.
All right. Welcome. I'm here today to educate, the brothers, sisters who listening in on Macroevolution. I'm also here to educate the brother Orthodox Moor on Macroevolution. To say that macroevolution isn't a fact, it speaks to the ignorance and the scientific illiteracy that permeates through our community, which is the Black community. And scientific illiteracy is definitely problematic, especially going forward in the world that we live in today. Now, I'm going to show you, without a shadow of a doubt, that macroevolution is a fact. Now, it's unfortunate that I had to educate this brother in this format when he could have just did a few simple Google searches and found it out himself. But he's going to attempt to, I guess, debunk it or say that it's not a fact, which I think is, to put it politely, quite silly. And the reason I say that is because you often find the people that go against macroevolution, they believe in a God or have some form of a God concept. And that belief in a God is very, very fragile. It may seem strong on the outside, but it's very, very fragile. And the reason I say that is because the people who believe in a God, their books tell them that a God made a man called Adam and Eve, and he had children and all this other foolishness. But evolution proves that to be false. And they know that if they accept and understand the theory of evolution, then that destroys that. So tonight, this debate isn't necessarily about the foolish belief in a God, but more so just a debate to educate. And with that, I'll pass the mic. Thank you.
All right. Shout out to Outside the Cube for dropping that information. We're going to now hand this thing over to Orthodox Moor. We're We're going to reset the timer for 7 minutes. And Orthodox Moor, whenever you're ready, you can begin, brother.
Right. I'm going to share my screen real quick, family. Yes. Bam. Can you see my screen, Solar?
Yes, we can.
All right, that's what's up. So the question here is macroevolution a fact? Is it a fact or is it a theory? Is macroevolution a scientific fact or is it a scientific fiction? We got to be clear on this, right? Because there's facts, there's scientific laws, there's hypothesis, and then there's theory. We need to be clear on what we're talking about. Does macroevolution qualify as a fact via the scientific method? This is something we'll be addressing here tonight. When we get into the definitions, macroevolution is not a scientific fact based on definition. A microevolution is based on observable changes over time and space. Macroevolution is based on supposition, hypothesis, and theories. These are things that are not proven yet. Macroevolutionists cannot demonstrate observable transitions and adaptations and mutations in their models via the scientific method. So let's get into some words real quick and understand what we're talking about. Via the National Center for Science Education definitions the National Center for Science and Education defines facts, hypotheses, laws, and theories as such. And the first step of scientific method, is to make an observation about the world around you, right? Oh, wait, hold on. Part. Fact. Fact is a science in observation that has been repeatedly confirmed for all practical purposes and accepted as true. One more time. It's in science is an observation that has been repeatedly confirmed and for all practical purposes accepted as true. Hypothesis, a tentative statement about the natural world leading to deduction that can be tested. If the deductions are verified, the hypothesis is provisionally corroborated. If the deductions are incorrect, the original hypothesis is proved false and must be abandoned or modified. This is going to be very important in our conversation. Laws, a descriptive generalization about some aspects of the natural world, how the natural world behaves under stated circumstances. A descriptive generalization about how some aspect of the natural world behaves under stated circumstances. That's a scientific law. And this is a scientific theory. This is what evolution deals with. We're dealing with evolutionary theory and macroevolution. Evolutionary theory. Macroevolution is a part of evolutionary theory. A theory in science is a well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world that can incorporate facts, laws, inferences, and tested hypotheses. A theory in and of itself is not a fact. It can contain facts. Let's get into the scientific method real quick, just so we can understand how we're going to test this out. Everyone should understand this from school. We've all went through this and whatnot. The scientific method is basic. One, you make an observation. The first step of the scientific method is to make an observation about the world around you. Two, you ask a question. Right? One must ask a question based on their observations, such as, why, how is this thing occurring? Three, you form a hypothesis. Hypothesis is an educated guess to explain the phenomena occurring based on prior observations. So again, either we're dealing with a fact or we're dealing with a guess. Understand that, fam. After that, you perform an experiment. After forming a hypothesis, an experiment must be set up and performed to test the hypothesis. After that, you deal with analyzing the data. You collect the data, and one must analyze the data. And after that, you form the conclusion. The last step of the scientific method is to form a conclusion. If the data supports the hypothesis, then the hypothesis may be the explanation for the phenomenon. However, multiple trials must be done to confirm the results. And it's also important to make sure that the sample size, the number of observations made is big enough so that the data is not skewed by just a few observations. If the data does not support the hypothesis, then these observations must be made anew. A new hypothesis is formed, and scientific method is used all over again. So either everything lines up or it don't. And if it don't, you got to start from scratch. What is macroevolution? Macroevolution, and this is from UC Berkeley, right? is generally referred to evolution above the species level. Macroevolution encompasses the grandest trends and transformations in evolution, such as the origins of mammals and the radiation of flowering plants. Macroevolutionary patterns are generally what we see. Generally, not always, but generally what we see when we look at the large scale of history, large scale history of life. It is not necessarily easy to see macroevolutionary history. What does all this mean? It means that it's not observed the whole time. It's not observed the whole time. Let me go back to this real quick. What is a fact? An observation that has been repeatedly confirmed. A scientific fact is an observation that has been repeatedly confirmed. And what they're telling you is that they don't always see what happens. They're making large leaps in logic. There are no first-hand accounts to be read. Instead, we reconstruct the history of life using all available evidence, geology, fossils, and living organisms. What you're going to see here is that there's large gaps in information. And instead of letting the information tell the story, they tell the story and use the information to force fit into their nice little boxes they want it to fit into. They don't let the story be told by the information. They tell the information what the story is. That is not the scientific method. Qube, as an atheist, is supposed to abandon all belief and measure everything by what can be tested and proved. That will be shown that he does not do that here at all. He will have the same blind faith that he accuses anybody with a religion having. That will be emphatically shown. And what will also be emphatically shown is that we do not descend from apes. There is no proof whatsoever in the fossil or genetic record to suggest in any way, shape, or form that we share common ancestry with some bipedal ape that looked like a chimp. So when Qube puts up a picture of an orangutan and his daughter say, "Oh, we're related," not having it. Not having it. And all the faux science that they talk about will be exposed if he wants to press the situation. And with that, I say peace and love, man. Let's get it in.
All right. We're going to go ahead and go into the premise round, which is set for 10 minutes. So let me go ahead and set this timer for 10 minutes and hand this thing over to OutsideTheQube. OutsideTheQube, the timer is set for 10 minutes. And whenever you're ready, you can begin your premise, brother.
Yeah. Just let me know if you can see my screen and we'll go from there. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
All right. Yeah. That was terrible. But once again, the name of this debate is Macroevolution a fact? That's the title. We're not talking about apes or all these other kind of weird things. We're talking about is macroevolution a fact. So let's get right to it. So now an overview, I'm gonna deal with what is macroevolution. Number 2, what are the mechanisms used in macroevolution? And number 3, the evidence of macroevolution and why it's a fact. So now, what is macroevolution? Macroevolution can be used to describe the differences between two closely related but distinct species, such as the Asian elephant and the African elephant, which cannot mate due to the barriers imposed by reproductive isolation. This is the process of speciation, which can be driven by a number of different mechanisms. Let's stop right there. I just proved right there macroevolution to be a fact. Because macroevolution, again, is used to describe the differences between two closely related but distinct species. So we have the Asian elephant and the African elephant, which cannot mate and produce viable offspring. Thus, it's macroevolution. So that's really game over, but I'm going to just slap box and play with them for the rest of this. All right. Additionally, macroevolution can describe differences between organisms belonging to larger clades of organisms. Let's continue here. Macroevolution continue. The term macroevolution is often used in contrast to the within species genetic changes that relate to microevolution, although the two concepts are fundamentally the same, albeit on different timescales. Each of the evolutionary mechanisms, mutation, gene flow, genetic drift, and natural selection that alter the gene pool of a population through microevolution will accumulate over a long time period, resulting ultimately in macroevolution. It's too easy. Now, let's look at the evolutionary mechanisms. Mutation, natural selection, and speciation. Could have went a little bit deeper, but I really didn't have a lot of time, and I just didn't want to full court press and blast off on them. So let's just start here. Mutations are genes in the genetic sequence, and they are a main cause of diversity among organisms. These changes occur at many different levels, and they can have widely different consequences. In biological systems that are capable of reproduction, we must first focus on whether they are heritable. Specifically, some mutations affect only the individual that carries them, while others affect all of the carrier's organism's offspring. So some get passed down, some don't. And further descendants. For mutations to affect an organism's descendants, they must, one, occur in cells that produce the next generation, and two, affect the hereditary material. Ultimately, the interplay between inherited mutations and environmental pressures generates diversity among species. So what we have here, we have mutations that generate diversity among species. Let's continue. Although various types of molecular changes exist, the word mutation typically refers to the change that affects the nucleic acids in cellular organisms. These nucleic acids are the building blocks of DNA, and in viruses, they are in the building blocks of either DNA or RNA. One way to think of DNA and RNA is that they are the substances that carry the long-term memory of the information required for an organism's reproduction. This article focuses on mutations in DNA, although we should keep in mind that RNA is subject to essentially the same mutation forces. Let's continue. Now, mutations continue. We can look here and see one of the pros of mutations is what? We have sickle cell anemia. The disorder sickle cell anemia is caused by a mutation in the gene that instructs the building of a protein called hemoglobin. This causes the red blood cells to become an abnormal rigid sickle shape. However, in African populations, having this mutation protects from malaria. So now, the cons of mutations. Mutations can also disrupt normal gene activity and cause diseases like cancer. Cancer is the most common human genetic disease. It is caused by mutations occurring in a number of growth-controlling genes, sometimes faulty. Cancer-causing genes can exist from birth, increasing a person's chance of getting cancer. Now, natural selection, this is another mechanism. Here we go. Natural selection is one of the basic mechanisms of evolution, along with mutation, migration, and genetic drift. Now, number one, if you look here on the graph, we have the green beetles and you have the brown beetles. There's a variation in traits. For example, some beetles are green and some are brown. Number two, there's differential reproduction. Since the environment can't support unlimited population growth, not all individuals get to reproduce to their full potential. In this example, green beetles tend to get eaten by birds and survive to reproduce less often than brown beetles do. Number three, heredity. I'm sorry. There is heredity. The surviving brown beetles have brown baby beetles because this trait has a genetic basis. So what's going on here? The birds are eating the green beetles while leaving the brown beetles to reproduce. And if the green beetles do not adapt, then they'll just continue to get ate and the species will no longer exist. So now, number four, the end result, the more advantageous trait, brown coloration, which allows the beetle to have more offspring, becomes more common in the population. If this process continues, eventually all individuals in the population will be brown. So let's continue. And here's another mechanism for macroevolution, speciation. Speciation is the process within evolution that leads to the formation of new, distinct species that are reproductively isolated from one another. Now we have anagenesis. Like, speciation is so in depth, but I really just don't have a lot of time to deal with it. So now anagenesis or phyletic evolution occurs when evolution acts to create new species. Macroevolution deals with the creation of new species. So now, which are distinct from their ancestors along a single lineage through gradual changes in physical or genetic traits. In this instance, there is no split in the phylogenetic tree. Conversely, speciation or cladiogenesis arises from a splitting event where a parent species is split into two distinct species, often as a result of geographic isolation or another driving force involving the separation of populations. So what is it saying is you have different events that can occur that can cause one species to split, which would then create new species. And we know that they're new species because during macroevolution and speciation, two species cannot mate and produce viable offspring, which makes them a new species. It is too easy. Here we go right here. Perfect example, as I mentioned, and I'm just giving you some images so you can see it, visually. Now we have the Asian elephant and the African elephant. We know emphatically, without a shadow of a doubt, they're both elephants, but they're different types of species within the family of elephant. Now, why are they different species? Well, because of macroevolution. They do not have the capability of interbreeding and exchanging genes to produce viable offspring. That's I don't see how you don't get that. It's too easy. So now speciation continue. The first steps of speciation. Hold on, a time check real quick, Solo. Let me see how much time I got. I don't really got that.
You have approximately 2 minutes left, brother.
All right, perfect. The first steps of speciation have been produced in several laboratory experiments involving geographic isolation. For example, Diane Dodd examined the effects of geographic isolation and selection on fruit flies. She took fruit flies from a single population and divided them into separate populations living in different cages to simulate geographic isolation. Half of the populations lived on maltose-based food, and the other population lived on starch-based foods. So what she's simulating is an event happening to where these two may get split up. So then when they get split up, obviously they're going to be eating different foods and have a different environment. So what she's doing is she's using a scientific method, as somebody tried to say that doesn't occur, and they don't do that. So now let me continue here. After many generations, the flies were tested to see which flies they preferred to mate with. Dodd found that some reproductive isolation had occurred as a result of the geographic isolation and selection for different food sources in the two environments. Maltose flies preferred other maltose flies. Starch flies preferred other starch flies. Although we can't be sure, these preference differences probably existed because selection for using different food sources also affected certain genes involved in reproductive behavior. This is the sort of result we'd expect if allopatric speciation were a typical mode of speciation. And allopatric is basically when you separate a species and the speciation occurs. So yeah, with that, that's my time, and I hope y'all learned something. Peace.
Yes. We learned a whole lot from Outside the Cube. Shout out to Outside the Cube for dropping that science. We're going to now hand this thing over to Orthodox Moor. You got 10 minutes for your premise, brother. Let me reset the timer. And whenever you're ready, brother, you can begin.
Okay, family, I want you to pay attention real quick. I'm on the same website that the brother Qube was just on reading from, except what I did is I went to the very beginning. We went to 101 with this, right? So if my man Lao Tzu said, if you're off by a little bit at the beginning, you'll be off by a lot at the end. And so we're going to show where my man was off by a little bit at the beginning and where he's off by everything at the end. So he tried to tell you that macroevolution is elephants becoming elephants and beetles becoming beetles and flies becoming flies. No. Macroevolution is an elephant becoming a hippo or a pig or a rhino, not another kind of elephant. Let's check this out. What is macroevolution? Again, I'm reading from the top of the page up here. Macroevolution generally refers to evolution above the species level. So instead of focusing on an individual beetle species, a macroevolutionary lens might require that we zoom out on the tree of life to assess the diversity of the entire beetle clade and its position on the tree, right? So you're talking about having to zoom out, not just with beetles. Now you got to check out a half step out to insects, because you might be stepping outside into something else. That's the whole point. Something else, a whole different thing. So let me get back into what I'm talking about, family. Because again, macroevolutionary theory by definition and function is not a fact. So let me get back to what I'm talking about. Are we talking? Micro and macroevolution talk about transitionary phases. Microevolution is transitions in a small period of time. Macroevolution is transitions in a long period of time. But they're not talking about transitions here when it comes to the macroevolution of human evolution, from us going from apes to human beings. So I'm going to break this down, and we're going to use an example that's viable to us. Not flies, not beetles, not elephants, human beings. How does it work for us? Right? So our supposed hominid ancestors have tree climbing adaptations that human beings do not have. This is from an article. Early hominid Lucy had powerful arms from years of tree climbing. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me show you what they're talking, how she looks. This is what they're saying Lucy looked like. This is the article in and of itself. Y'all can see it. I'm reading a snippet. This is what they're saying Lucy looked like. A member of the species of Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy had long chip-like arms and fingers, features that would seem ideal in her life involved a great deal of tree climbing. But her legs and human-like feet show she was what researchers called a terrestrial biped. She could walk in a human-like manner. So Lucy's chimp-like arms might simply be features she inherited from a tree climbing ancestor, but no longer really used. This is what they used to think, family, that she just had chimp-like arms. This means that she had a robust muscular strength, a robust muscular frame, and robust skeletal frame. They had bone density 5 to 10 times our density, right? And so their muscle on that frame is like a chimpanzee, built to swing from trees. Tree swing is what they say she can do, right? Their muscle is built to where they can hang and relax on a tree. We're not built like that. We don't got the density for that in our bones to support that kind of a muscle structure. They're built way different than us, right? But what they're saying is she doesn't have chimp-like feet, that she has human feet. But what they found out is this. They just found the foot of an Australopithecus afarensis child. And what they found out is they have more of the foot now. So what did they find out about this? It says Salam is the name of this child, right? Salam's big toe joint is even more curved than in the adult. Hold on, let me get this part right here. Because this is the important part here. They're saying that, here we go. They're saying that chimps don't have the grasping toe or the Australopithecines don't have the grasping toe of a chimp, right? And so this started the bipedal process, hence started us becoming human beings. Without this process, they got nothing to go back to. So let's say, check this out. Human beings' big toes aren't offset like our thumbs. Instead, they're in line with our toes, like our other toes, which boosts our walking efficiency. The big toe of Australopithecus afarensis is similarly aligned, but its base joint is more curved than ours. In short, Australopithecus afarensis could wiggle its big toes side to side more than we can. Salam's big toe joint is even more curved than in the adults of the species, which suggests that she had especially limber big toes, well suited to grasping. Up until now, they said that Australopithecus afarensis did not have a grasping toe. Hence, this was the beginning of a bipedal structure for us, right? So they said we went from the trees to the ground with these animals, but what they're finding out is they still lived in the trees and still had tree adaptations in their feet. Now, in microevolution or macroevolution, you have something called stasis. These are patterns in macroevolution. Stasis, where something does not change over long periods of time. Long periods of time. So the big foot could wiggle and move left and right. That's an Australopithecus, right? That's at the beginning of the change. They're saying at the end, past us is Neanderthal. But what they also find with Neanderthal has the same toes. Can wiggle way farther than ours with a wider foot. Has the climbing adaptations that we do not have. We do not have the bone structure, the shorter lower limbs, the longer upper limbs, and the big thumb as a big toe that they have as climbing adaptations. And you know what they don't have, family? They don't have any of our aquatic adaptations. Not one single solitary one of our aquatic adaptations. As a matter of fact, we have something that no other so-called hominid has. We have subcutaneous fat. We have webbing on our fingers and our toes. And our babies are born able to hold their breath underwater and swim instantaneously. These creatures can't do that. They don't have a hooded nose. Their noses would make it to where they drown underwater. They would waterboard. Their bones are so heavy they would sink like stones. With us, we can see microevolution of us actually getting more aquatic adaptations. You have sea nomads in the Adamanis Islands who they can see underwater, and their spleens are getting bigger to help them stay underwater longer. You can see this in National Geographic all over the place and in the BBC all over the place. But what you don't see is you don't see a single solitary transition from the tree swingers to anything aquatic. Neanderthal has no aquatic adaptations whatsoever. Australopithecus afarensis has no aquatic adaptations whatsoever. You see this nose? Would waterboard. The same bones and muscles that make it to where she could swing in the trees would make her sink like a stone in the water. There's no transition from that to what we have. They'll try to say that, oh, we go back to our most common ancestors, Australopithecus, Homo heidelbergensis, and they lived to be up to 300,000 years ago. Well, that was cool for back when they thought that Homo sapiens were only 120,000 years ago. But guess what they found out? They found out that we go back to 315,000 years ago now, with the bones found in Morocco just recently. So now they're saying we're contemporary with our common ancestor that looked like an ape and had no aquatic adaptations, but we existed at the same time, and there's no transition in the fossil or the genetics to stipulate that there was a transition in time, or a transition in change over time. It's not a transition. It's a transmutation. They're turning lead into gold, one thing into something completely different. On top of that, let's go on a couple other things real quick. Mitochondrial Eve and chromosomal Adam go back to Africa, and they have no genetic ties to any hominid whatsoever. Common ancestry amongst this hominid structure of evolution is based on bipedalism and not any direct genetic link. And some scientists are now saying that we went from being pale people to dark people back to pale people. Look at this right here. This is what they're saying now, that dark skin may have evolved to protect against skin cancer. This is scientific studies happening right now. A look at skin cancer from an evolutionary perspective suggests that maybe once we were all white, then we were all black, then some of us went back to being white. You know why they say this? They're saying this, and this is based off speculation, no scientific fact whatsoever. They say this because the apes that they say we come from have pale skin like this one right here. And you see this dry skin on this ape, on this chimp? That's called this right here. Actinic keratosis. This is precancerous skin lesions. This is dryness of the skin that makes it to where you can't get dark, and it gives you cancer. Guess what has this, family? Neanderthals have this. Neanderthal has this genetics. Guess who doesn't have this, family? The Khoisan people. The people that we share common ancestry with. All human beings. This is mitochondrial Eve going back to these people. This is what a common ancestor looks like. Not this. Not this. This is what a common ancestor looks like. This could be everybody. They could be African. They could be Asian. They could be whatever. And you see that they have a brown skin tone. They don't look like Mr. Harry and the Hendersons over here.
Time. Shout out to Solving the Race Power for dropping that information. We're gonna go right now into the rebuttal round.
You got strap on the mind, bro. That's Orthodox Moor.
I was just looking at the chat room. That's why I just read his comment. I just read his comment in the chat room. Orthodox Moor, shout out to Orthodox Moor for dropping that science. We're going to now hand this thing over to Outside the Cube. Outside the Cube, we're going to set the timer for 10 minutes for your rebuttal, family. So whenever you're ready, you can begin. Qube, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, brother.
All right. Yeah, this was pretty terrible, man. I thought the brother was actually gonna come with something. You know, we're in two separate debates. I'm talking about macroevolution, and he's asking the question if we came from apes or not. That's a totally different discussion. I need you to prove that macroevolution isn't a fact. So to the people who may think that he's doing a pretty good job, he's not. He may be doing a good job in a different debate, but this debate is macroevolution effect is the title. That's what this is. So when it comes to rebutting the things that he said, it's a bit difficult because he didn't say anything really pertaining to this debate, which I find to be a bit crazy. Orthodox Moor, I thought he would be a better debater than this, but yeah, he was saying a few things about when he went to the Evolution 101 website, and the brother was kind of skipping over stuff, so I want to deal with that first. One of the things we was talking about macroevolution, how you have to zoom out and look at the whole phylogenetic tree. He missed the part where it says, oh no, he missed the part to where it says you might have to zoom out to see it. That's he totally skipped over that word. You see what I'm saying? Reading is fundamental. It's very, very fundamental. And the brother just clearly skipped over that, which threw off the whole premise, and it fell flat to people who are actually listening and paying attention. Another thing he brought up is that he tried to say macroevolution, generally macroevolution can't be seen and it's not easy to see. Okay, well, guess what? Jupiter isn't easy to see, but with a telescope, it can be seen. So with the right tools, things can be seen. So that's foolish again. I don't even see why he went there. It generally can't be seen. Of course it generally can't be seen. That's duh. I think we would understand it, but if your reading comprehension is not on par, you won't get what they were saying. Okay, let me continue here. Yeah, another thing, the brother tried to change the definition of macroevolution, which I thought was one of his poorest attempts of the night. And he kind of set it up to where he was going to change the definition of macroevolution, and then he ran off to talk about the apes. Well, sorry, brother, I ain't going to let you do that. We're going to read what macroevolution is again, and I'm going to have to show you. Now, macroevolution can be used to describe the differences between two closely related but distinct species, such as the Asian elephant and the African elephant, which cannot mate due to barriers imposed by reproductive isolation. That's why I came out with that slide first, because I knew you was going to run. I came out with that slide first just to show that macroevolution is 100% a fact, because no matter how you try to interpret what macroevolution is, this is the fact. This is what macroevolution. It's talking about two distinct species, and this is what it is. And that's a fact that you can't get around it, period, point blank. Try as you must. That's why you were reduced to talking about apes and other things that had nothing to do with the topic. Did we come from apes, or did we come from Neanderthal and they have this and we don't have that? Well, that has nothing to do with if macroevolution is a fact. You can say all day, okay, well, we don't have the information to 100% prove if we came from this and if they had this and we didn't have that. Talk about that all day. But I showed you macroevolution. I showed it to you in the form of the Asian elephant and the African elephant, and I showed it to you in the form of the fruit fly, period. I told you what it was, I told you how it works, and I gave you evidence of it. You came out, tried to change the definition of macroevolution, and then started talking about apes. Let me continue here. It was just sad. Got that, okay. Yeah, let me deal with this thing, because he really didn't, talk about the topic. So now now I got to talk about what he said. So he was talking about that one article he had from National Geographic, which was sad. I can't believe he even did that. Once again, reading comprehension is going to come back to bite him. So the brother said that in the article, it clearly said that the adults had different feet from the children. It clearly said that. So he tried to make that out like, oh, well, see, this couldn't have been us, because obviously he was having a whole different discussion. So the feet of the children were different from the adults. Now, anybody knows who has children, You can look at a child in an adult, and they're gonna be different. Period. They're going to be different because things change in your body. Your toes, your muscles, they get bigger as you grow older. So of course they're gonna be different in a child. The same way they will be different, they will look different in the mother's stomach. So that was another silly point that I don't even know why he even brought that up. Oh, the feet were different in the child. Of course. Look at your child to where the legs may be a little bowed out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They walk a little funny. But when they get a little bit older, they start to look more like you. Everybody knows this. This is not something hard. Of course the feet are going to look different. So now let me continue. That was sad. I can't believe he did that. Oh yeah, and then the last point I'll just touch on. He was talking about he brought up an article saying, well, they said that, they could have evolved from white to black because they had to hide themselves from the radiation from the sun. Well, duh. That's what our melanin used for? That don't make no goddamn sense. You know that the reason that we have melanin is to protect us from the sun. So it doesn't matter if we started off white or started off purple. That's just ridiculous to even bring that point up. We have melanin to protect us from the sun. So what? What if we started off white? What if we started off green? And if you look at any ape and you shave them off, they're not going to have the same melanin content of a person in East or South Africa or West Africa for that matter. Like, come on, cut that out. That's just ridiculous, man. The brother brought no information, no points. The closest he did was first he tried to debunk Macroevolution by saying they don't use the scientific method when I showed that to be false. I did that in my premise round. Which was sad. Like, man, you got to stop that. I really ain't got much to say. The brother didn't cover anything. I really don't have anything to rebut. So with that, I got to call time. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Shout out to Qube for that rebuttal. We're going to now hand this thing back over to Orthodox Moor for his rebuttal. We're going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes. And whenever you're ready, brother, you could begin your rebuttal outside.
Can you hear me real quick?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you, brother.
And just double check. Okay, real quick, just to start back in on what he was talking about in terms of the foot demonstration, right? So I'm talking about so when it comes to human evolution and the macroevolution of human evolution, from us going from something to something else, what they say is, what does it mean to be human? This is the Smithsonian breaking down. Walking upright is what it means to be human. Again, nothing genetic. The concept of just walking. No provable genetics linking us to any hominid. Just walking. That's the whole concept. Just walking. Just walking. That's all it is. Walking bipedally, right? So when they say it starts with the Australopithecus, they just found out, hey, you know what? It doesn't even start with them. It doesn't even start with them. This is the foot of what was the child's name? Salam. This is the foot of Salam. Look at how far out the big toe is. Look at where the other four toes are. Does your foot look like that when you put it on the ground? Now, what the article says here, I'm going to read it one more time. Human big toes aren't offset like our thumbs. Instead, they're in line with our other toes, which boost our walking efficiency. The big toe of Australopithecus afarensis is similarly aligned, but its base joint is more curved now than ours. In short, Australopithecus afarensis could wiggle its big toes side to side more than we can. That part was not limited to the children. Salam's big toe joint is even more curved than its adults of the species. Even more so. Which suggests that she had especially limber big toes well suited for grasping. So it doesn't say that the parents or the adults don't have a big toe that moves side to side more than us. It says that the children can move more than the parents could. Reading is fundamental. So let's go back to it real quick. We have no common culture or cause with these so-called hominids that we supposedly share no genetic link with, and you can see no transition in the fossil record from us going from tree swingers to having aquatic adaptations, like being able to see underwater and having larger spleens, etc. So let's see what else we don't have in common. Hominids lack the hand structure for fine tooling, like writing, sculpting, or caving. You see here where it says that there's curvature in the bones there? You have the same curvature in, hold on, let me find it. I know I got it. You have the same curvature. This is a Neanderthal thumb. You have the same curvature in that thumb. We don't have that curvature in the base of the thumb. This is the kind of curvature they're talking about in the base of the toe, where they're talking about the base of the joints, etc., why it can wiggle more and more. These thumbs cannot hold things like pencils or scalpels. They can hold things like axes and hammers, but not fine tooling things. They can't hold like drills or things of that nature. What does that mean? That means they're limited in their capacity to do things that we can do. So let's get into that. What does that even look like? There's no conclusive evidence that hominids had any carved or written records of events, language, or mathematics. We got all that. They don't got none of that. In Africa, there is the Ashango bone, 20,000 years old, with no transitional steps, no hominid transitional steps. There's no hominid supposedly before us doing mathematics and recording it. No transitional steps. Boom, out of nowhere. Not transition, transmutation. Hominids have no. Oh, there we go. Hominids have an occipital lobe, a dominant brain suited for sight and sensory functions like smell, etc. And they also have genetics for schizophrenia and depression. We have large frontal lobes. We have large frontally lobe dominant brains suited for comprehension, communication, memory making, empathy, creative thinking, and fine motor skills like fine tooling. We have brain power that they don't have. Their brains are built different than ours. And there's no transitional difference. There's no transition in the fossil record to show where they stopped having an occipital bone and we started having one. Overnight, they have one and we don't. No transition, no observable transition in the fossil record. Not a fact, no observation. Hominids have never been shown to record star time or alignments, and were never ascribed cave art or burials prior to human beings. Human beings have been tracking star time and tracking stars and making cave art way, 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 way before anybody else. And there is no one else. There's no hominid before us that in any way. Check this out. This is what I'm talking about. What do I mean by tracking star time? This is Adam's calendar in South Africa, where the Khoisan come from. These people here, our common ancestors. Not this. These people are our common ancestors. They use this to track star alignment, solstices, all that type of stuff. When the sun's going to rise, when it's going to set, and where. This is 75,000 plus years old. This is contemporary with Neanderthal and other hominids. Is there any other is there any archaeological record at all of Neanderthals having any kind of tracking, or any kind of hominids at all having any kind of tracking of star time before us? No. There's no transition for it. It shows up overnight. Tracking star time and tracking them with megaliths at that. No observable transition. Not a fact. Not a fact. Again, we can go into the cave art. Again, we got the oldest cave art. Going back to the same thing, 77,000 years ago, South Africa. Again. There's no comparable cave art of any before that from any hominid whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, the cave art that they do ascribe to Neanderthals, they describe it to Neanderthals because of the age. They say, oh, we know Neanderthals were in the area 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. So the cave art that goes back 50,000 years, it could potentially belong to them. But check this out. If human beings go back 315,000 years ago and we're contemporary, it can also belong to us. See, that's that word could. That's that word could and might. Not a fact. You can't stand on it. Like he asked the question, what if we started off white? Well, that's a question via the scientific method. Now you got some stuff to do. Now you got a hypothesis to make. Now you got a prediction to make. Now you got testing to do. Now you got analysts, data to analyze. The data does not give you any room to stipulate that we came from white skin and went to dark. None whatsoever, because these people here who have the dark skin share zero genetics with any known hominid on the planet or prior to us. Zero. There's no genetic link anywhere from our ancestors, the Khoisan, to any bipedal hominid that they want to talk about coming before us. Heidelbergensis, Homo erectus, Florensis, habilis, any of them. No genetic tie whatsoever. The only genetic tie, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm going to break it down like this. The only reason why people are saying stuff like this is dark skin going to light skin, white skin going to dark skin, going back to white skin, is because people are trying to justify the concept of them having more of these genetics than what we have. Again, the Khoisan don't come from this. The Khoisan, check this out. You show me the genetics in a macroevolutionary way. You show me the genetics for a chimp like this or a chimp like this having curly hair. Have you seen one curly haired ape ever in the world? Ever? Where's the stasis? Hold on. Where's the stasis on that? They're trying to tell us that the stasis, that makes us hominids and apes and all this, the fact that we can walk bipedally. That's the one thing we got in common with these things. And now they're finding out, you know what? We don't even walk like them. They still walk like apes. So what is the science and the fact that you lean on to say that the macroevolution of human evolution is a fact? Because if it ain't a fact with us, how are you saying it's a fact with anything else? And why are you even trying to prove it with anything else? That's the real question. Because you're rocking with the evolutionary atheism game that stipulates we better not come from Africans. And if we do, we have to be the people who come up with the atheism and the evolutionary constructs have to be the last stage in evolution. So they're the dominant structure on the planet. I.e. now they're trying to say we went from white to black back to white.
Time.
But you already know that white cannot produce black.
Time. All right. Shout out to Orthodox Moor for
Thank
dropping
God
that
is over.
We're going to go ahead and go into the rapid fire round. The rapid fire round, my favorite part of the debate. So we're going to go ahead and set this timer for 15 minutes. And since Outside the Cube went first, we're going to allow Orthodox Moor to ask the first question to start this thing off. So whenever you're ready, Orthodox Moor, you can begin with your question.
Okay. So if macroevolution is a fact, can you list the observable proven facts that illustrate human evolution from hominids to human beings?
I reject your premise, brother, because we're not talking about humans going from apes. We're talking about macroevolution. So if you like to structure it a different way, then maybe I can answer it, but not that way right there, because we're not talking about humans and apes. We're talking about macroevolution, the mechanisms and the process.
So is humans coming from apes not part of macroevolution or the macroevolutionary theory?
Yes.
So how do you reject the premise if it has directly to do with the topic?
Because that's not we're not talking about apes in that particular portion of macroevolution.
I'm asking you to demonstrate macroevolution.
No, but you're asking me to demonstrate it in the form of humans and hominids and things like that. But that's not the debate.
The debate is not, is macroevolution a fact?
Exactly. That's what it is.
So can you stand on it being a fact?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm asking you to demonstrate that fact via human evolution.
All right. See
so the specific question was, what are the observable proven facts of human evolution?
All right. So I knew you was gonna try to do this to try to change it you know, and try to mix up what the actual debate was, but that wasn't a debate. But to help you out, it can be demonstrated. You can look at the fossil evidence and say and argue that we don't descend from them, but we do. That's just period. Ain't no way around that. You know, even when you look at the DNA that we have with Neanderthals, it's that's ridiculous. It's already been proven with that. But let me move on to my question.
No. You didn't answer the question. I asked you to list the observable proven facts. What are the observable proven facts?
I just did. That's why you
start with one because I missed all that, bro.
You're like on your fifth question, but I'll entertain this last one.
It's one question.
I already answered the question, and
repeat the answer, brother.
You can look at the fossil records, and even
fossil?
No. See, So
I clearly stated in my presentation that there's no transitional record from going to tree swinging to having aquatic adaptations. What fossils are there for aquatic adaptations? In apes, in hominids?
Well, I was attempting to answer, but you decided to interrupt me. So now I'll just move on to my question. So now, when we're talking about, and I'm just going to kill it right here, and I really don't need time. I just needed this one question, and you can go on and ask whatever questions you have. So now, when we're talking about macroevolution, speciation is a part of that process. And do you agree with speciation?
In a micro level, yes. Not a macro level.
Okay, brother. Maybe I didn't form the question properly.
No, that's the answer to my question. I'm answered the same way. I might as well move on to my question now.
Well, speciation is not microevolution. It's macroevolution.
So I answered your question. I agree with it in a micro form, not a macro form. That's the same question. That's my same answer no matter how many times you ask the question.
That's fine. Go ahead. You can ask a question.
So, is there any demonstratable transitionary genetics or fossil records showing how we went from tree swinging to having any aquatic adaptation?
Yes, there are. Like I said, once again, the fossil record clearly proves that.
Can you cite one fossil? From what species?
Well, you actually use one of them in your premise round. Okay. And in your rebuttal round when you was talking about Lucy. Like, what do you mean?
So what aquatic adaptations does Lucy have?
Was that your question? Or was that like another question?
What shared traits that we have that are aquatic adaptations, like the subcutaneous fat, the breathing under the holding breath underwater, our babies being able to breathe, or not breathe, but swim instantaneously after being born underwater? What kind of adaptations, like seeing underwater, like we can do now? What transitionary adaptations do you see in the fossil record at all for that?
See, this is sad, and that's mostly conjecture. I'll entertain this question because it's ridiculous, and I need to slap this down. That's ridiculous because when you were talking about Neanderthals and things like that they can't swim instantly and things like that, we don't have information to be able to say that they could or they couldn't. We don't have information that confirms or denies that. So for you to say that, it's conjecture and it's garbage.
What other primate do you see doing that?
Why can't you let me finish? I don't get it.
What other primate do you see doing that? Simple question: is there any other primate in the world who has the aquatic adaptations that we do?
I'll go on to my question. Thank you. Now, my question is: I explained macroevolution, and macroevolution is used to describe the differences between two closely related but distinct species. Now, the example I gave and the evidence I gave was the Asian elephant and the African elephant. Do you agree that is speciation?
I agree it's a form of speciation, yeah, on a micro level.
Okay, and that is not on the micro, it's on the macro level. So game over. It's over right there.
Nah, they're still elephants, bro.
What are you talking about?
Are they not elephants?
Yes, but they're two different species.
Cool. Then I'm going on to my question real quick.
Okay.
So my question is there any evidence for any hominid prior to us being so-called hominids, illustrating mathematics, cave art, burial, or tracking star time, or tracking stars and star alignments? From
what we know, I would have to say no, because we are the most advanced species when it comes to the group of primates that we come from.
So just to be clear, you're admitting that there's no transitionary evidence showing that happening. We just did it overnight out of
That's not what I said. You said
in terms of species, like Homo sapiens did it, no one else did it. Yeah,
we are the most advanced. Yes, that's
so
what
there's so not most advanced. There's no transition to it happening.
All right, so then your whole question is just faulty then.
Can you illustrate any hominid prior to Homo sapien?
Hold on.
Can you illustrate any hominid prior to Homo sapien?
Your question is
transitioning in any way, shape, or form to cave on, burial, tracking star alignment in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. Minuscule forms, bro. Minute forms.
Your question is implying that we do descend and share a common ancestor with primates. So that's why I answered it.
No, the question infers, if that is the case, can you prove it with something?
Okay, implied, hypothetical, if whatever you want to say, it's the same thing. You're implying that it's true, and can I show you?
No, I'm inferring if your argument is true. Can you show me proof?
I already answered the question. Did the answer satisfy or no?
There's no transition.
That wasn't your question. Your question was, hold on, let me repeat the question back to you, because you try to talk so much that you're changing what you initially said. What you said was, are there any people who are charting stars and cave art and things like that? Do we have those things? And I'm telling you that no, we don't have those, but we have that as Homo sapiens sapien because we are the most advanced. Now you're introducing a whole nother question. Stop that. You over talking me and you won't stop. That's why you're getting lost in the sauce. So now my question.
No, your question admits in and of itself that there's no transition in the process, that it just sparked out of nowhere. Not a transition, transmutation, lead turning into gold. That's the whole point. No scientific method, no observable fact. It's a science fiction. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So now, do you agree that mutations occur and mutations are a mechanism in macroevolution?
So I don't agree with macroevolution at all. So I agree that in microevolution, mutations occur and mutations are a factor in microevolution.
All right. And so do you also agree with natural selection?
To an extent.
Okay. So now this is all like one big question. So forgive me if I'm asking you multiple questions, because
I'm gonna let you get one more before I go back.
Yeah, it's just one big thing. I was walking you down.
I got you. I heard it.
Yeah, I had to walk you off that cliff.
I got you.
So now what I did was, you just agree with mutations, you just agree with natural selection, and you just agreed with speciation. And by definition, that is macroevolution. Solomon, I need to know this shit is over.
By definition, that's microevolution. That's not microevolution.
I just gave you the definition in my premise round, and I told you I'm gonna touch on the three evolutionary mechanisms, which was mutation, natural selection, and speciation.
Okay, evolutionary mechanisms does not prove macroevolution, because the same evolutionary mechanisms are involved in microevolution. Yes.
Okay, we got to stop.
Yes, no. Are the same evolutionary mechanisms involved in microevolution?
No, they're not.
Mutation, adaptation, not part of microevolution. You're kidding me,
bro. Speciation.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Hold on, slow down and listen.
Can you have speciation without microevolution?
Hold on, brother.
Can you have speciation without microevolution? Yes.
Let me answer the.
Can you have speciation without microevolution? Yes, no.
Repeating that does nothing. I want to answer.
Can you have speciation without remove microevolution from the scene? Can you have speciation?
That means nothing. Let me continue what I was saying.
That means everything.
Let me answer the question. So now you agree with mutation.
Y'all see you running like a nosebleed, man.
No, you keep changing the questions, asking a whole bunch of
I'm cutting you off at the pass because you spitting nonsense, bro. You're trying to say, a microevolution is true because of macro. No, bro. No. Micro is micro. Leave micro alone. Prove macro. Show it to me in the human evolution. Like, because, bro, again, you can't show me the observable fact. That's the question. Is it a fact right now? You can't show me the fact.
Listen, the fact is, in my premise round,
I asked you for an aquatic adaptation. Right. You took me to a tree swing. You said Lucy, the person I cited as the tree swinger, was the person, was the sign of aquatic adaptation. Fuck out of here, Qube. What are you talking about? Show me the observable fact, brother. I'll wait.
All right, listen, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it to where you're not gonna continue to cut me off, because I'm not doing that to you.
Hey, we had that opportunity. We could have we could have designed this a whole other way. You said you wanted the rapid fire, bro, so I'm gonna cut it when I want to.
Okay, well then I'm done with the debate then, and I'll just move on. I'm done with this portion. Excuse me, this portion of the debate. If you don't want to talk,
Closing round. Let's go.
Answer
Bro, I want proof. I don't want your opinion. I want proof. I want this. I want the scientific method, and I want the scientific fact. Show me the transition. You said there is no transition. End of debate. There is no observable transition. It's not a fact. Qube.
Hey, the brother doesn't want to talk and ask questions. You know, respectfully.
Oh, bro, I had a list of questions that you didn't want to answer. Like, no, I don't want that format. Let's just go for a 10-minute rapid fire. Let's not go for the other format. I don't want to answer all your questions, bro. Stop front now. Answer one of them. Show me one proof, brother. Just one.
But that hinged that you would be civilized. I thought
that hinges on you showing actual proof, brother.
All right. Hey, you can go ahead and keep talking, but I'm done with this portion of the debate. The brother just does not want to stop over talking me, and nobody can understand what we're saying if we're going back and forth like that.
All right. So with that being said, we can go now into the closing round. We're going to get this thing over to Outside the Cube. We're going to go ahead and set this timer for 7 minutes. And brother, whenever you're ready, you could begin your closing.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Yeah, to the people that's listening, man, you know, I apologize about that, but I couldn't sit through another 10 minutes of him just cutting me off, you know, when I'm trying to answer his questions. And then what he was constantly doing was asking a question. I'd be in the middle of answering it. Then he introduced another question. And he understands that the information I brought out clearly shows that macroevolution is a fact. So, number one, I'll do an overview. In my asking of the questions, I asked him, do you agree that mutations occur? He said yes. I said, do you agree that natural selections occur? He said yes. I asked him, do you agree that speciation occurs? He said yes. Now, when I point to him and tell him these are the mechanisms of macroevolution, he can't understand that for some reason. It's like if I tell you, if I give you 100-yard field, put stripes on it, and then I'll give you a football field, and then I'll give you football players, and the ref, and the timekeeper, and somebody to keep the points. Is that a football game? Yes, it's a football game. So I did the same thing. I gave him the components of macroevolution. I gave him the exact same components. You have mutation occurring, natural selection occurring, speciation occurring, genetic drift, gene flow, all these, not gene flow, but genetic drift. All of these things is what makes up macroevolution and is 100% a fact. Period, point blank. There's no way around it. And the brother smelt that, and he knew where I was going with it. That's why he had to continue to interrupt me, which I thought was pretty sad. And once again, you know, I showed the mutations, you know, with sickle cell anemia and, you know, cancer. We know that happens. I showed natural selection, you know what I'm saying, how things can change. And I showed speciation clearly with the Asian and the African elephant. That was the dagger to the heart that he just could not get away from. And with those things combined, that's macroevolution. And the brother does not want to acquiesce, but I understand. He's in a debate and he feels that he's right, but he knows that he's wrong. That's the sad part about it. He knows that he's wrong. And he brought up this foolishness about the scientific method. I debunked that thing totally when I told him about the fruit fly. That was done with the scientific method. Then he tried to pigeonhole me into a debate about primates. That's not what we're talking about. And furthermore, what I wanted to get to, even if you debunk that we came from primates, that does not prove macroevolution to be false. Period. It just doesn't. Because you're talking about one particular species. If you're saying we don't come from primates, look at all the other evidence there is out there of macroevolutions. He's so silly that he thinks of macroevolution to be turning from a fish to a donkey, from a donkey to a giraffe. In his simple mind, he thinks that is the only thing that macroevolution could be, which in actuality, no, that's not what it is. Scientifically, that's not what macroevolution is. Scientifically, that's not what it is, the definition of it. Is that a part of it? Yes. With the time being stretched out? Yes, that's a part of it. But when you look at the definition, the biological definition of it, that's not it. And I knew he was going to come in here and do that, but I did not expect him to not let me finish, answering his questions and things of that nature. I thought that was a bit childish. But with that, greetings. I appreciate everybody who listened. And without a shadow of a doubt, I proved macroevolution. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay. Shout out to Outside the Cube for dropping that excellent closing. We're going to hand this thing over now to the Orthodox Moor. Orthodox Moor, whenever you're ready, you can begin your closing, brother.
Yeah, I'm sorry Qube showed up to a debate and didn't expect the debate. But real quick, family, I'm going to read something from my scrolls because we're going to get into this more next season. Because what Qube doesn't recognize, I come from a school of thought that actually specifically deals with this concept. And this is only a portion of what we deal with it. So he wants to save the rest for the next season. We'll do that. But I'm going to read 15 scriptures real quick from my scroll. Chapter 11 from the Circle 7 Quran. Jesus and Bharata together, they read the sacred books. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Bharata Arebo. Together, Jesus and Bharata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets and read the Vedas and the Avesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, "Man is the marvel of the universe. He is a part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was a bit of formless substance in the molds of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectedness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience, and mind is often manifest in fleshy form, and in the form best suited to its growth, so mind may manifest as worm or beast or bird or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved into the state of perfect man, and after man is perfect, and after man is man in perfectness, he will evolve in higher forms of life. And Jesus said, Bharata Rebo, who told you this? That mind, which is man, may manifest in flesh or beast or bird or creeping thing. Bharata said, from the time which man remembers not, our priests have told us so, and so we know. One more time. From time which man remembers not, our priests have told us, and so we know. And Jesus said, enlighten the Rebo. Are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows not by being told? Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arebo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than the priest have told you so, you do not know, you simply guess. So the concept of microevolution and macroevolution is being able to see the transitions in short periods of time and long periods of time. Short periods of time, micro. Big periods of time, macro. And so what I asked the brother to do, if what he was saying was a fact, and let me go back to what I was talking about concerning the scientific method real quick. In the beginning, we got the definitions for this, right? What is a fact? In science, it's an observation that has been repeatedly confirmed, and for all practical purposes is accepted as true, repeatedly confirmed. Now, what we're dealing with is a theory. Evolution is theory. It's evolutionary theory. In science, it's a well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world that can incorporate facts, laws, inferences, and tested hypotheses. That's why I asked him, what facts do you have to stand on? What can you show me that's observable and proven? And again, I asked, can you show me the transition? Because everything you're saying is based upon the transition. Evolution is transitional change. So how did we go from this to this, if that's the case? If that is the case. So I asked my brother, can you prove it? Can you show me? So again, he talked about gene flow being part of macroevolution. I asked, can you show me any genetic evidence in any way, shape, or form linking our people, mitochondrial Eve or chromosomal Adam from Africa, to any known hominid in existence ever. He tried to say something about Neanderthal. We don't share genetics with Neanderthal like that. We don't descend. There's no scientist that says we descend from Neanderthal. And if anything, Neanderthal was copying us. Like I said, the cave art that's supposedly attributed to Neanderthal and the burial sites that are attributed to Neanderthal don't show up till way after us. And they supposedly showed up way before us. So if your whole premise is I can show you the transition, but you can't show me the transition, you are not talking about a scientific fact. You are talking about a theory, an explanation of something that can be supported by things like tested hypothesis, facts, etc. They don't have to be supported by such. They're not always supported by such. That's when they become scientific laws and scientific facts, not scientific theories. Different concept, completely different. So if you can't show it to me in our human evolution, we're the creatures who came up with this macroevolutionary concept. We can't apply it to us, and it's supposed to be real. You gotta be the truth yourself. Be what you know. If you can't apply it to yourself, bro, no, it ain't true. No, it ain't true. Of course not. You ain't tested it then. You tested on everything but yourself. And you tell me that's a scientific method. You can't show me no transitions, and you can't no observable transitions, and that's the scientific method for calling it a fact? No, sir. No, sir. And if you're trying to sell it to our people as being science, not gonna happen on my watch. Science is important for our education, important for our growth as people, but not science that says that we went from being white to black back to white to support some people being ashamed of where they come from. Some people would rather come from this than come from this. Support that science? Never. With that, I say peace and love.
All right. Shout out to Orthodox Moor for closing this thing out. Very excellent debate. Let us know, family. You know, obviously y'all part of the community, so y'all can put it in the comment section who you think had the best argument. This is the all season of debate. You see these brothers still coming with some powerful information. So once again, shout out to Outside the Qube and Orthodox Moor. As what I told you guys, we're going to bring on tomorrow. We're going to have Brother King Christian going up against Domo, and the topic will be: should we base our concepts of good and evil from the scriptures? So make sure you tune in to that, family. And also, we're going to try to squeeze in an interview with Brother Madden. Got to get in contact with him. I seen him in the chat room. So we're going to get in contact with him. So we may do an interview earlier because that debate between Domo and King Christian is set for 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we may have a double header tomorrow. Keep you posted on that. But until next time, this is the Solar Vision Debate League. Man, peace.